What's up, y'all? Welcome to the PT on Ice Daily Show, brought to you by the Institute of Clinical Excellence. My name is Dustin Jones. I'm one of two lead faculty members within the older adult division. Christina Previtt and I, we teach three courses, so two online courses called Modern Management of the Older Adult, Essential Foundations, and then Advanced Concepts, and then the live weekend course as well. Advanced Concepts, the next cohort actually starts this evening, so we're pretty excited about that. Wanted to introduce you all to the Stronger Life Fitness gym as it stands right now during the current COVID-19 pandemic. We're not able to be in the gym, so this is my living room. This is where we've been holding a lot of our online virtual classes, and this is where we're going to talk about how to introduce kettlebell swings, hard style or Russian style kettlebell swings to older adults. This is a question that was submitted, and by someone that submitted, I mean Alex Germano. We were talking about kettlebell swings and how to introduce that to some of our older adult patients or clients, and how challenging that can be, whether it's from the psychological standpoint, the confidence standpoint, the coordination standpoint, which is huge as well. How can we do that? And I have learned through many trials and tribulations and failures, especially in a group setting, of what works, what doesn't really work, and how to kind of go that step process to get people swinging. And some people, especially some clinicians, may see this or hear kettlebell swing and say, my patients are never going to do that. And I would agree with some of you. You know, kettlebell swings probably isn't appropriate for someone in the acute care setting. There's probably some other things that you can do that you're going to get a solid bang for your buck. There are other settings as well where, you know, a kettlebell swing may not be super high on your list. However, I do think that it's a helpful skill for you to have as a human being and an individual, but to have in your back pocket to be able to show the skill to some of your patients if it warrants. I definitely think of the outpatient clinicians towards the end of your course of care where people are feeling great, they're getting strong, you probably already have them deadlifting and lifting heavier weight off the ground. The ability to swing heavy weight can be rather empowering. And I think that's been rather eye-opening for me in teaching kettlebell swings to older adults is when I ask them what's their perception of this movement, whether their perception of it before we taught the kettlebell swing and then afterwards. And the consistent theme is that A, it's very intimidating when they see people swinging a kettlebell, a heavier weight or relatively heavy weight. It can be rather scary for a lot of individuals. However, once they kind of get over that hump and really start to learn the skill and they end up doing it themselves, I've had several people say they literally felt like they were badasses. It was very empowering. And I think we speak to this with deadlifts as well, that when you rip a heavy weight off the ground, that feels really good. It really changes your psyche and how you perceive yourself, but also how you perceive challenges in your life and situations. And the kettlebell swing is no different. So I think it does have its place in physical therapy, in rehabilitation, especially with older adults. I want to go through a few things that I'm thinking through, and I'm trying to really teach people that are skills that kind of stack on one another, and the end result is a kettlebell swing. So the first thing that we want to do is make sure they can deadlift. Can they deadlift a weight? Can they deadlift with speed? Can they hike? Can they leverage their legs more than their arms? And then can they play chicken with the kettlebell? AKA, do they have good timing to wait to hip hinge until that kettlebell is pretty close to their pelvis? So let's break some of these down. I'll put this whiteboard here. We'll check these off as we go. For the podcast listeners, I'm going to talk through this as much as possible. This is definitely going to be better for the video viewers. However, if you are listening to the podcast, this is still going to be helpful. I'll talk through it. If anything's unclear, hop on to Facebook, go to Institute of Clinical Excellence and search Kettlebells, and this video is going to come up and you'll be able to watch it and it'll be helpful. So the deadlift, we talk about deadlifts a ton on this podcast, whether it's on Wednesdays on Jerry on Ice or if it's on Friday with the Fitness Athlete Fridays. There's a few things that you want to think about with deadlifts, especially when we're working with older adults. The first thing is that we're commonly going to be using kettlebells. I know a lot of home health clinicians will leverage kettlebells. A lot of people in outpatient as well, because it doesn't take up a ton of space and they're relatively inexpensive. That's great. However, when we're introducing this weight, we need to really know what we're working with, especially with some of these lighter weights. Now, if you'll take a look here, I've got a couple different types of kettlebells. This is an 8er style. This is made by Rogue. These are typically have a wider handle and a taller handle. These are great for doing high volume kettlebell work. This is a standard Rogue kettlebell right here. This is a 53 pounder. It has a shorter handle. So if you're doing a lot of high volume, especially things where you're in the clean position or the rack position, it can be kind of tough on the wrist as compared to the 8er. The big thing that I want you all to think about is the difference of the height. This is a 53 pounder. This is a 26 pounder. This is probably only about an inch difference. An inch for an older adult that has a difficult time lifting something up off the ground in terms of range of motion is going to be a big deal, especially when many of your patients, you may be starting them off with maybe the 8-pound kettlebell or the 13-pound kettlebell, and those are significantly shorter. So the height of the weight is going to be very important, and you want to consider that. That's why we're often elevating the weight if they're not able to show us those good mechanics all the way down. So we're going to use something like a yoga block, stacked books, maybe a box, or maybe even a stool, something along those lines. Now, when you leverage an elevated surface, I want you to think about a couple things. That's going to be their position, and then the position of the weight. A very common issue, especially with teaching the older adult, a deadlift, is their ability to shift their weight posteriorly. There's a couple things that we can do. We can give them a target. We can give them, words that can help as well. But we want to put them in a situation where they have no choice but to do what we're hoping for them to do. And so an elevated surface, it's going to be there, but we want to think about the positioning of that elevated surface. So let's say this yoga block right here, I've got the surface elevated, and I'm really wanting them to focus on that posterior weight shift. We have the handle of the kettlebell lined up with the medial malleoli, and I'm having them come down and then pick it back up. But then as they're putting it back down, what happens? They end up putting that kettlebell down a little bit anteriorly, a little bit far forward. A big issue, a very common issue, is that I've given them the ability to do that with that elevated surface, whether it's a book, yoga block, box, whatever. So what you want to really focus on is that elevated surface doesn't give them any choice but to shift their weight posteriorly. So what that means is I'm going to start with that kettlebell on the front of that elevated surface, and then they're lined up in that proper position. So as they go to put that weight back down, they have no choice but to put it on that block, and they're already shifting their weight posteriorly. Same thing if you're doing an elevated surface or a stool, back up to it. Make sure the front edge of that surface is right in line to where you want that kettlebell to end up going, and go down and then come up. All right, so that's what you want to think about when you're elevating a surface and you're trying to coach that deadlift. There's obviously a lot of other things that we want to focus on, but that's a big one that we have to address with the kettlebell, and that's shifting that weight posteriorly. And obviously a lot of the other points of performance that we talk about, reference some of the other PT on Ice episodes where we go through that in detail. So deadlift, yes, they can deadlift, check. All right, can they deadlift with speed? Because a kettlebell swing is a deadlift with speed. I'm going to demonstrate the kettlebell swing here. And all it is I'm going from this bottom of the deadlift position, hiking it back, coming up to the top. Now, if they just learn how to deadlift, do you think they're going to be able to do that explosively? Probably not. We're going to have to give them some reps and reps and reps to really build that skill up. So that's where we want to focus on the speed. So once they have their deadlift down, give them a few reps, and then maybe give them a cue to come up quickly, to stand up tall, to stand up quick. And what we're looking for is their ability to increase the speed of that deadlift or that hip hinge motion and still maintain a lot of those mechanics. We want to make sure they have that before we go into the next step, which is the hike. All right, the hike is very important because a lot of people, they do a kettlebell swing, and let's say they have 20 reps that they're doing. A lot of people don't perceive the kettlebell swings to start until the kettlebell is already up maybe to their shoulder height, and it's over as soon as they get that 20th rep, and who knows how they get it to the ground. It can be rather ugly, and the mechanics can be lost, especially under heavy weight. We probably don't want that. So we want to focus on how they get the kettlebell going and then how they're able to get the kettlebell to the ground. And we don't want them to learn that the hard way. We want to practice that skill on the front end. So once they have that deadlift, let's work on the hike. All right, so the hike is this position here, just like you're hiking a football. And so what we may do is just do hikes, several hikes to where they get that position and they're able to maintain that deadlift position and hike that kettlebell. Once they're able to do that, then we're going to go to a teeter-totter, all right? This is where you're going to maintain that bottom position. You're just going back and forth, and you're having to work on your balance here. But they're working on that hike position with their straight arms, feeling what it's like to maintain that position and bring that kettlebell to the ground nice and easy. All right, so they have the hike. Let's throw in a swing with it as well. So typically what we would do is we would hike, get one swing, hike, back to the ground. I would demonstrate this. Hike, swing, hike, down. Hike, swing, hike, down. Have them do, a few reps of that. Hike, swing, hike, down. Hike, swing, hike, down. Get reps and reps and reps, and you can up the ante in terms of the number of swings. So I may do a hike with 3 swings and then put it down. Hike, 1, 2, 3, hike, and down. Okay, check. They're able to hike. Now when they go to swinging with the hikes, it's probably not going to be pretty. It's probably going to be, you're going to have issues with they may be trying to just lift the kettlebell up with the arms. They may have poor timing and coordination. That's going to be completely normal. We're not focused on that yet. We're just focused on the hike, that they can pick the kettlebell up efficiently and then put it down efficiently. That's the goal. Once they're able to show that hike, then we're going to focus more on the swing, okay? The big thing with the kettlebell is that it is mostly a lower extremity movement. You're not doing a lot, hardly anything with your arms. The way we like to think of this exercise is that your hands are hooks, your arms are ropes. Let me say it again. Your hands are hooks around the handle of the kettlebell and your arms are ropes. The only thing your arms are doing are working to transfer the force that you generate from your lower extremity to that kettlebell. That's all it is. I'm not lifting like this. It's just a rope that's the hand's gonna hook around the kettlebell. But a lot of people are gonna struggle with that. They're gonna try and lift that kettlebell up with their arms. They're gonna think this is an arm movement, and we don't necessarily want that with the Russian swing. And so what you can do oftentimes is maybe go up in weight. So hand them a heavier bell to the point that they don't necessarily have the strength to lift the bell up with their hands. So they have to generate more force with their legs. That works with some people, does not work with everyone. But one trick that can be helpful is doing towel swings. That's going to give a lot of that feedback to tell them, wait, I'm not doing something right. Maybe I need to leverage more of my legs and less of my arms. So a towel swing, you take a dish towel, put it around the kettlebell handle, and we're gonna swing this. If I try and lift my arms with this towel, it's going to cause the kettlebell to tilt, and it's going to kind of shake me around. And it's going to feel, it's not going to feel great. It's going to be very obvious I'm not performing these smoothly. Now, if you leverage it with your legs, it's going to be a smooth swing. So I'm going to do a few of these incorrectly, and then I'll correct after 2 reps and show you what it should look like. So I'm trying to lift now, legs. The kettlebell stays nice and level. It's not shaking me around. So a nice towel swing can do that. Oftentimes, once you bring the towel out, that's going to correct that arm dominant swing, or you can leverage the heavier kettlebell. Okay, using arms or legs, check. Last but not least, playing chicken with the kettlebell. All right, remember, kettlebell swing is a deadlift motion. Timing is absolutely huge. If I break too soon to go down in the bottom of that deadlift or that hip hinge, that weight is going to go down and pull me into more of a squat position. It's going to be much more challenging for me. I'm going to be working a lot harder. I'm not going to be leveraging as much of that posterior chain, which is the main goal or the focus of a kettlebell swing. And so the timing is going to be very, very challenging for people. And so one cue that you can give is you're playing chicken with the kettlebell. You are waiting, you're holding that top position as long as you can until you have to go into that position. Playing chicken with the kettlebell works well with males. May not necessarily work well with females, I've come to find. You can also leverage another external cue as if you have two buttons on your hips and your forearms are touching those buttons, and that's when you go into the bottom of that position. All right, so I'll show you what it's like when people are not showing great timing for 2 reps, and then I'll correct it and show you what it should look like. All right, so as you see, I'm gonna hike up and then I start to bend it way before the kettlebell gets to me and it's pulling me down, versus this rep, I wait and I'm allowed to hike and get in more of a deadlift position. All right, so you are playing chicken with the kettlebell. You're waiting till your forearms touch those buttons and then boom, you're in it. You'll also find too that people may have a tough time getting that kettlebell behind them, and that's where you can leverage something like a clipboard or a magazine or whatever, not your hand, probably not that great, but you want to stand behind them and have the kettle or the board up a little bit so they have a target to try and tap the kettlebell, and you just want to make sure that it's a little further back, so they have to really shift their weight posteriorly and hike that kettlebell back to touch that object, and that's going to be a good cue as well. All right, that's it, y'all. So just to recap some of the steps you want to walk through. First, can they deadlift? Can they do a solid deadlift where they're shifting their weight posteriorly? If they can, great, let's continue. Can they deadlift with speed? Can they maintain those points of performance and that efficiency under speed? If they can, great. Let's go to hiking. So we're going to hike that kettlebell back into that back position so we know they can safely pick it up and they can also safely put it back down. This is much more important once we're getting heavier and heavier. Then we're going to go and do some swings. All right, are they using their arms more, or are they using their legs? If they're using more of their arms, may go up in weight, take a heavier kettlebell to the point that they can't lift with their arms, they have to generate force from their legs, or do something like towel swings. Then last but not least, play chicken with the kettlebell. This is all about timing. You really want to focus on holding that top position until their forearms are touching their hips or the buttons on the front of their hips, or they're just playing chicken. They're holding it as long as they can to get into that back position to be able to perform that swing. And from there, increase the weight, increase the reps, have some fun with it. This is a great exercise, especially if they can do at home. I mean, it does not take a lot of swings to get a solid benefit from that. So if you have any questions, tips, anything that works for you in terms of introducing kettlebell swings with some of your patients or with older adults, comment on this Facebook video. We'd love to hear more about how you leverage this exercise, but I think you should consider learning it yourself, but also leveraging this in your practice as well. I think your patients are going to benefit from it tremendously from the physical standpoint, but also from the psychological standpoint as well. So thank y'all, appreciate it. I'll talk with y'all in a couple weeks.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.